Okay, today I'm going to talk about something that maybe is not the most fun conversation, and I'm just giving a pre-warning. This does have conversations about child loss and trauma, so if this is something that maybe is too triggering for you, then I would go ahead and skip over this video. So in 4 months, it's going to be 4 years since my son passed. And if you're not totally familiar with my story, I had my son back in 2017. He was born with a heart condition called HLHS. And then during his hospital stay, he was also then diagnosed with CHARD syndrome, had multiple open heart surgeries. He had a tracheostomy placed, a G-tube placed. He was on a ventilator for a good portion of time. And he was for sure medically compromised. And then, long story short, we brought him home and he was making an incredible recovery. Like, none of the doctors ever really gave him much hope or really thought that he was going to recover. I think they all really kind of thought that he was just going to go home to die. But I'm a firm believer that love is the best medicine, and his father and I completely dedicated our lives to caring for him. During this journey of transitioning into being home, we were quickly taught that the services provided outside of the hospital were not the same services that were provided in the hospital, which, mind you, obviously, but I fought so hard to get quality care for my son because we had seen on multiple occasions that the nursing care was just compromised. We had caught nurses trying to give the wrong doses of medication. They were overfeeding him liquids when he was on fluid restrictions. There were many cases that if his father and I were not home, he would have been killed by these nurses' negligence. Long story short, we got him to a healthy place, and then I decided to go to nursing school so that I could be my son's nurse and stay home with him and not jeopardize his care while also still making income. Well, again, long story short, halfway through my program, our main nurse that we had was on vacation, and so they were sending fill-ins. And without my knowledge, they sent a nurse that had no tracheostomy training, who had been deemed unsafe to work with patients with tracheostomies, and many other things that were qualifying her not to be fit to care for my son. And within 2 hours on her shift, Tad's trach came out, and she didn't know how to save him. She didn't know the steps to take care of him. And so he passed away in her care. Obviously, any loss is difficult. Obviously, any child loss is extremely difficult because you can't help but to feel that they were taken before their time. But the added layer of knowing that his death was preventable, the way Tad died, was my worst nightmare. And that's made my grief a lot harder for me to really come to terms with and to process. And it made it extremely difficult. And after my son passed, I felt extremely passionate and driven to find ways to try to prevent this from happening. And sadly, I realized that was almost impossible because despite my son's death and me only going to nursing school to be his nurse, I continued my nursing program and I got my nursing certificate. And despite always saying I never wanted to work with kids in that state of being a nurse, I ended up working for a nursing agency, and I was essentially the type of nurse that my son. And when I tell you what I learned by being that type of nurse, it broke me more because I realized that the system was so broken and it was almost inevitable, my son's death, because these agencies see numbers, they see diagnosis, and they see what insurance will cover. And while being a home care nurse, I saw so many errors and I saw so many dangerous situations that other nurses were being put into I was being put into. And it really just opened my eyes to how big of a problem this was. And after working as a home care nurse, my soul was broken because I saw these families desperate for care, and I saw the type of care that was coming to their houses, and I felt like I was exposed to so much darkness, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I will say that through my son's life, through his death, and then through my experience in the medical field, I came out the other side as a very different person, because I think I was exposed to so much harm and so much trauma that it really scarred me in ways that I don't even think I was fully aware of. And I just want to talk about loss for a minute, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that when you lose somebody, you'll hear all the time, it'll get better with time. And the truth is that I could not agree more with this statement, because after almost 4 years, I will tell you, it's not time that makes it better. Nothing truly makes it better, but when you're able to get yourself to a safe enough space to where you can grieve properly and fully grieve, like allow yourself to fully feel everything that your body and your mind needs to feel, you then are able to make new experiences. And new experiences is what helps grief. It's not the time, it's the experiences. And I know that I sit here very privileged to say that I have gotten myself to a place where I have allowed myself to be able to explore. And I think that is one of the best things that I could have ever done for myself. And I know that there's a lot of other lost parents that have other children. And so being able to travel maybe isn't the most feasible, but I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I could ever give to somebody who's experienced so much loss is to see the world. Because when somebody dies, your world gets so tiny and it's filled with so much darkness that if you stay in that darkness, there is no way to survive it. But if you can get yourself to a space where you're able to see, the world is such a beautiful place, despite everything that is portrayed on social media and news and whatever it may be. The world is a beautiful place and it's filled with amazing people if you're able to see that. I will never be the same person. I will always miss my son, always. But I can tell you, sitting here for almost 4 years, my son's life and his death have allowed me to see life and this world in a way that I could never describe. Because when you lose somebody, you realize how fragile life is. You realize how precious the tiny little moments in every day are. You realize that money means nothing, but that people are so valuable. The connections we have with one another is truly where the wealth is in life. And as much as having my son and losing my son was by far the hardest thing that I could have ever went through in life, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't change it. And although grieving somebody is extremely hard, I will say that if you're able to love somebody that's not physically here, it's a different type of love. And although it's not ideal, I would say it's one of the most profound and special types of loves that you can ever have here on earth. And I just want to say to anybody who is grieving, who has lost somebody, I see you. Like, I really see you. And I'm sorry. But don't let the story end there, because I know that even Tad and I's story is not finished. Just because he left here on earth doesn't mean that our love and our relationship went anywhere. And I'll spend the rest of my life doing things in his honor because of him and because of the person that his love has helped me become. If you stayed to the end, sorry this was such an emotional video, but thanks for listening, and thanks for allowing me to continue to share my son and I's relationship, to share his story, and to keeping him alive, even though that he's not here on earth anymore.